Welcome, members. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Jackie. I'm the president of the Tri-Valley Democratic Club. I also want to welcome members of Tri-Valley Indivisible, Livermore Indivisible, the San Ramon Valley Democratic Club, the Castro Valley Democratic Club, and I'm hearing that we also have members from Indivisible Tri-Valley or Indivisible Tracy, which is awesome. Welcome to all of you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with the normal opening or the Pledge of Allegiance or quotes from the Constitution tonight. We're going to jump right into our meeting. We have a huge agenda tonight. And to explain how this is going to go down and talk about how this process and do all of the introductions, I want to introduce Richard Lee, my vice president. He's also a political digital expert. He's worked for the Biden campaign, the Kamala Harris campaign, and others, doing all kinds of digital ads. He's also a DSCC delegate. So I want to welcome to the floor, Richard Lee.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. That was very nice. Before we get started, I'm just going to take a few minutes just to get all of the informational stuff out of the way so everyone knows how tonight is going to work. As Jackie mentioned, in conjunction with the Tri-Valley Dems, this meeting is being co-sponsored by Livermore Indivisible, Indivisible Tri-Valley, the San Ramon Valley Dems, and I know a couple, as Jackie mentioned, a couple of other orgs are here with us tonight. So thank you all for co-sponsoring. Thank you all for your participation. We're glad that you are here. Over the next hour and a half, we're going to be hearing from 5 Democratic candidates running for California governor. They are in order from first to last: former Congress member Katie Porter, former Secretary of Health and Human Services Xavier Becerra, Mr. Tom Steyer, Congress member Eric Swalwell, and former State Controller Betty Yee. Former LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa and San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan were scheduled to join us tonight, but unfortunately ran into last-minute conflicts and could not join us this evening. Each candidate will have 20 minutes total, which will consist of a 5-minute opening statement, roughly 14 minutes for Q&A, and a 1-minute closer. A 5-minute and a 1-minute timer will be set for the opener and closer respectively for each candidate, so they know how long they have to speak. If you would like to ask a candidate a question during Q&A, you have 2 options. We're going to present 2 options for y'all tonight. You can either raise your virtual Zoom hand and we will call on you, or if you don't wish to speak, you can drop your question in the chat and we will ask it on your behalf. If you'd like to ask a candidate a question directly, please, 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 we ask you to stay focused. Don't go on a tangent and keep your question to 30 seconds. If you go beyond 30 seconds, we will mute you. So please don't make us do that. We will do our best to get through as many questions as possible as the meeting progresses. We're going to try to also prioritize questions from folks who have not already previously asked a question so that as many people as possible have an opportunity to speak. Tonight serves as the endorsement meeting for the members of the Tri-Valley Dems. We're aiming to get through all the candidates by around 8:15, and we'll send out ballots to eligible voting members of the Tri-Valley Dems afterwards via email. As a reminder, per our club's bylaws, you must have paid your dues for the year at least 28 days before an endorsement vote to be an eligible voting member for an endorsement ballot. So if you have not paid your dues yet or paid your dues less than 28 days ago, you will not be eligible to vote for this endorsement. But you can still vote in future endorsements so long as you pay your dues tonight.
Now, Richard, just a quick clarification. That applies to brand new members, the 28-day rule. So if you were a member last year and you just have not renewed yet, you can still renew. But if you were not a member last year, you know, when you skipped a year or whatever, you have to wait that 28 days. So if you were a member and you just renewed yesterday or today, you're good to vote. But if you have never been a member, you have to at least be a new member 28 days before voting for the first time. So
Great.
just a clarification on that.
Thank you, Jackie. So yes, Jackie's right. If you're unsure, by the way, if whether or not you're eligible to be a voting member for tonight's ballot, please email tvdemsmedia@gmail.com and we can let you know, or you can ask in the chat. We'll drop that email address in the chat and Jackie will be monitoring the chat as well. All right, after our candidates have all had an opportunity to speak, we will transition to club business and reports as we normally do before we open the floor for any new business or announcements. If there are any questions about anything I just said, feel free to ask in the chat and we will make sure it is answered. All right, great. And I see our first guest, Congressmember Katie Porter, is here. Welcome, Congressmember. Thanks for being with us. If you missed it, you have 5 minutes for an opening statement before we go into Q&A, and you are able to begin whenever you're ready.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I just landed back from the Bay Area a few minutes ago, so I'm very excited to be in conversation with you all. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to meet you and get to know you a little bit better. For those of you who don't know me, I was a 3-term congresswoman from Orange County, where I flipped a very competitive seat. It had been Republican for 75 years. I'm a single mother to 3 teenagers, so running for governor is what I've been doing to relax compared to being a single mom. And I'm a law professor at the University of California, Irvine, where I specialize in consumer protection. And of course, I'm running to be your next governor. Look, I'm running for one reason, because I want California to be a better place for my children and grandchildren, kids, seniors to live and to retire now and in the future. We've had some amazing governors. We've had celebrity governors. We've had governors who were kids of governors. I am a minivan driving mom who is willing and ready to kick Donald Trump's ass. And we need somebody in the governor's office who understands not only the harm that Donald Trump is doing, who's gone toe to toe with him and his cronies, but also somebody who knows what the cost of living in California is really like. Somebody who's pushed a shopping cart, somebody who's saying no to the $7 box of cereal her kids tries to put in the cart. If we're going to be serious about affordability, we cannot afford to just nibble around the edges. We need concrete, well-developed policy ideas. So I want to talk with you tonight about 5 big things that I'm focused on, 5 specific policies that I've rolled out that I'm proud of, and how they would bring down the cost of living for California. Because this election is absolutely about standing up to Donald Trump, but it's also about solving some of our own longstanding challenges here in California. So here are the 5 things. First, less expensive housing. How do we do this? 2 ways, principally. We have to build faster, about 10 to 20. If we build as fast as Colorado does, that'll take 10 to 20% off housing costs. We also have to innovate in what we build, how we build, architectural design, building materials, construction techniques, and housing finance, for example. And so those are all really, really important things. We're not going to attract more workers and more jobs to the state of California if we don't have a place to house them. Second big policy, and this is what I was talking about today up in San Francisco, which is investing in our workforce and our economy with free childcare. Every other country in the world has made this investment, and increasingly our competitor states are doing it too. Funding childcare would grow our California economy by $23 billion annually. And it's not just something for moms or people with kids. Funding childcare helps everybody because everybody is better off in a strong economy. Third thing, single-payer healthcare. Look, Donald Trump is stripping away healthcare from millions of Californians, attacking Medi-Cal, raising premiums. California must do more than just fight back on those cuts. We have an opportunity to tackle some of the things that have been holding back our own healthcare system, really standing up to big pharma to bring down prescription drug costs, making sure that our healthcare dollars are going toward care rather than claims processing and prior authorizations. The simple truth is that single payer provides the best quality healthcare with the biggest choice of network, and that's why I've supported it since I first ran for Congress in 2017. Fourth thing, zero tuition at UC CSU for years 3 and 4. Why years 3 and 4? Because Gavin made 2 years at community college free. I want to pair that with years 3 and 4 at the UC CSUs for our transferring students. That's a free college degree for our Californians. It honors the promise of the California Master Plan to taxpayers, and it will help us have a workforce that's ready to not just survive in AI, but thrive. Last policy is eliminating California income tax for those who earn less than $100,000. We know that that's what it takes in most parts of California to be able to save a little for retirement, to take care of your family, to take care of healthcare and housing and more. These are all real affordability solutions, putting money back into the pockets of families. I am the only candidate in this race who has not taken a dime from corporations. The other top Democrats in this race are a billionaire who spent $88 million on this campaign and counting, and somebody who has taken a corporate-backed candidate who's taken over $3 million from corporations. I have never taken corporate contributions, and I never will. I think that's a big distinction, especially in our state where the status quo of corporate money has created the housing and affordability crisis that we face. Thanks so much, and I'm ready for your questions.
Thanks so much, Congressmember. Jennifer, I see your hand is up. You can come off mute.
Thank you. What will you do to restore rooftop solar for our energy needs that has been dismantled by the Newsom administration?
Yep. So the CPUC needs a hard reset. Californians have lost confidence that the CPUC is working for them rather than working for our large utility companies. And the rooftop solar rules that you mentioned are a perfect example of that. The next governor is going to get 2 appointees to the CPUC right away. And we have to elect people who do not have conflicts of interest, financial, relationship-wise, or otherwise. And we have to recognize that California's energy needs are predicted to go up by 50% over the next 10 years. We need distributed energy. If people can do it on their home rooftops, if businesses can do it at their sites, we should be encouraging that, not discouraging it. And if the utilities, the investor-owned utilities or municipal utilities are standing in the way of that, it's the job of the governor to put people on CPUC who will write that. We need more energy, especially green energy, not less. And that's the CPUC's job, to keep energy available and affordable for Californians. And I will hold them to account. There needs to be a cleaner house there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressmember. I see a question in chat from Francesca around corporate PAC money, but I think the Congressmember already answered that, so we'll move on. Jean had a question. What's your plan for funding free childcare and 2 more years of college? The state isn't even adequately funding K through 12 education.
Yep. So you're absolutely right about K through 12. There's no doubt about that. That's one of the reasons that I'm strongly supporting the renewal of Prop 55, which is one of the ways that we do fund K through 12. But you're right, we need to be making better use of our education dollars. But let me talk about how I would fund the 2 things that I mentioned. Right now, California has a flat corporate tax. And I think all taxes should be progressive. Our income tax is progressive. The wealthy pay more, and by God, they should. But our corporate tax is flat. A corporation that makes $1 pays 8.84%. A corporation that makes $1 billion in profit also pays 8.84%. If we took our corporate tax from flat to just slightly tilted, it would generate between $10 and $20 billion. The cost of the UC proposal I mentioned is right around, and CSU proposal is right around $4 billion. It would apply to in-state students only, of course, because out-of-state or foreign students should pay full price. And we're also only talking about 2 years because we want to encourage more kids to go to community college and transfer. Why? Because that lets us effectively increase the enrollment at UCS CSU, because we have kids only here for 2 years instead of 4. We could actually double the enrollment. And also, and most importantly, because kids who go to community college do better in their junior and senior years, in their final years of their university, and that's holding equal every kind of demographic and the major that you can think of. On childcare, it's going to be a combination of the corporate revenue I mentioned, which is wholly appropriate because businesses will benefit from having a workforce that is able to stay on the job, not have to exit to do childcare. but there could also be some modest payroll tax that's part of that. But we need to just recognize that childcare today in California costs more than college tuition here. And families do not get 18 years and tax breaks to pay for it. So it's a huge, huge investment in the future. It's also helpful for our seniors, many of whom are having to take care of their grandkids. You love them, you enjoy them, but that can't be the main safety net that families have.
Thank you, Congressmember. Next question comes from Chris. What will you do to protect California residents against the ICE patrols?
Yep. I have been the only candidate in the top batch of polling candidates who's been calling very clearly to abolish ICE. That is absolutely the right thing to do. And we need to not only have a governor who will fight ICE tooth and nail, make sure we are using every single tool at our disposal, including, and this is, I think, something that differentiates me from the other candidates, making sure that our red counties like Orange County that have a Republican majority board of supervisors are not cooperating with ICE. UCSD, for example, University of California, San Diego, has a multi-million-dollar contract to cooperate with ICE. And we certainly see that in a lot of our more Republican and red-leaning counties. That is something that's an oversight issue that the government needs to hold people to account. I'm also going to, the day after this primary, I am going to turn to helping win the congressional seats that we fought for in Prop 50. That way we can have a delegation that will win back the House and will be able to hold ICE to account. That is incredibly important for us to do. This is not just a policy job as governor, it's also a political job. And I am proud to be the candidate in this race who has raised tens of millions of dollars for other candidates through my PAC, Truth to Power, mentored candidates, helped make sure we held on to seats here in Orange County and across the state, supported folks like Josh Harder, Dave Min, Derek Tran, Robert Garcia, and more.
Thanks, Congressmember. I see two questions in the chat that are pretty similar, so I'll ask them together. Beverly asks, concerned that our state tax rate is very high for high-income individuals. How do we keep these people from leaving the state? Shweta asks, policy on taxing the billionaires, yet making sure they don't leave the state and hence the jobs.
Yep. So if you've ever seen me with a whiteboard in a hearing, taking on CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, you've seen me go toe-to-toe with CEOs of Big Pharma, you will know that I absolutely have the backbone to hold the rich and the powerful, and frankly, the entitled to account. Billionaires should pay more taxes, and to the extent that we are seeing the very tippy top get exponentially richer with tech and with AI, we have to go back and revisit our progressive tax structure because we're seeing the top looks even more tippy top than it ever has before. But I don't support this particular billionaire's tax, and I'm going to tell you why. First off, it's a one-time tax. And as some of you on this call have noted, California doesn't have one-time revenue needs. Education continues to be a need. Healthcare is going to continue to be a need. Billionaires are going to be rich for their entire lives. They shouldn't just have to pay one time. The second thing is, what about half billionaires? Do they not have any loose pocket change that they can chip in to help California? They surely do. The third thing is this billionaire's tax would be limited. 90% of it would have to go to healthcare. Healthcare is incredibly important, but what's happening in Washington is changing on a dime. We are seeing Donald Trump attack different programs. We're going to win back the House in 28. We could get back our Medi-Cal dollars. I don't think we ought to be locking in this important piece of our tax base, our most wealthy people. That tax is also going to be challenged in court. There's a lot of effort to close loopholes that I want to acknowledge, but those taxes will take years and years to come in. I do think, like I said, we are seeing the very most wealthy Californians become even wealthier. So we might have to rethink our top tax bracket, but we want to do that in a smart and sensible way. And we have to pair it with showing job creators and business owners that they are getting value for their tax dollar. Cheaper housing and more housing, investment in our UCs and CSUs for workforce training, and childcare are not only the biggest expenses for California families, they are also at the top of what the business community wants to and is willing to invest in and support.
Thank you, Congressmember. Another question from the chat from Indivisible Alameda. We know there are too many candidates running currently risking a Democratic as governor. How will you work with the other candidates to bring two of you to the front so we can be sure we don't have a Republican governor?
Yeah, I am concerned about this, and I have been really the only candidate who's been willing to acknowledge this risk. And I think it's foolhardy to say, oh, it could never happen. That is exactly what people said about Donald Trump in 2016. And so I think we have to take it seriously. Here's my pledge and my plan. I have been polling at the top of this race since I got in almost exactly 1 year ago. If that changes and I am no longer viable, I love my life as a professor. I love my kids. I love the other work that I do. And I'm proud of that work, training the next generation of consumer protection lawyers and advocates. So long as I stay near the top, I'm not going to exit this race. I do think if there are 3 Democrats, the vote share is about 65%. That will easily make sure that we cannot end up with 2 Republicans. But you're absolutely right that we need to continue to consolidate. I respect what a big decision this is for people, and I hope they will reach the right decision for them based on an honest assessment of their viability. If the viability of my campaign were to change radically from what it's been for the last 12 months, that is absolutely something I would revisit.
Thank you, Congressmember. I see, Colleen, your hand is up, so I'll have you ask the last question. Colleen, would you like to come off mute?
I think that'd be way easier to ask the question if I did that first. Speaking of your candidacy, because I know that your name recognition was really up there, and I think it took a hit because of that video that was circulating online showing you speaking too harshly to one of your staff members. Can you address the concerns it raises about how you treat the people that work for you? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me a chance to address this directly with you. I really appreciate it. So I have said publicly, and I need to remember and continue to grow and remember that that was a bad moment. And I have said that. I apologize to that staffer in that moment. And I'm really, really proud that we continued to work together for 4 years after that incident. I spoke harshly to her. I apologized. We didn't just pick up and keep going that day. We worked together for 4 years, and I'm proud that she still works in politics today. I'm proud to have staffers who've been with me for 8 years and to have received an award from the Congressional Management Foundation for the leadership that I showed in how I designed and executed my congressional staff, providing opportunities that were unparalleled for new staffers to have substantive responsibilities in my office. So I absolutely need to apologize for that moment. I've taken responsibility for it. I'm glad it occurred years ago because I've had a lot of time to reflect on it and to do better. And I'm proud to still have a strong relationship with that staff for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressmember. Thanks, Colleen. As we wrap up here, Congressmember, we'll give you a minute for a closing statement. The timer will begin whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so I want to say 2 things. This is a policy job, and I will put my policy chops up against anybody. California needs some new ideas. If you think the status quo in California is just working wonderfully, I got to be honest, I might not be the right candidate for you. But if you're worried about whether or not your kids or grandkids are going to be able to stay here, if you're worried whether you're going to be able to live here when you retire, then I think you should vote for me. I have put the time in over the last year to take meetings with all of the former chiefs of staff for Governor Newsom, for Governor Brown, even one of Governor Schwarzenegger's, meeting with the policy advisors, the budget folks, the legislative team to really dig into these issues. My policies are thoughtful and they will work. But the second piece is this is a communication and political job. And I am a strong communicator, including across party lines, and a very good grassroots fundraiser. California, we have to live our values in this democracy. We should elect someone who refuses big oil money and refuses corporate PAC money. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressmember. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you all. What a wonderful turnout. I'm so honored, and I hope I get up to see you at one of your in-person meetings soon. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for the great questions. I promise we'll try and get through as many of them as possible. I see our next candidate's already here. Secretary Becerra, can we spotlight?
Let me spotlight him and restart the timer. Apologize. Let me in
There
here.
he is. I see him.
Let me make spotlight though for the whole video. There we go.
There we go. Welcome, Secretary. Thank you for being here. We're going to give you 5 minutes for an opening statement, and the timer will begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you all very much, Richard, to you and to all the Tri-Valley Dems. Thank you for including us. And can I just say, thank you for believing in big D and little d democracy. Thank you for showing up. Virtually, it helps to give everyone an opportunity to get to meet the candidates. And you've been gracious to let us get to meet you. So let me go right into it. I am the proud son of immigrants. I am fortunate to have grown up in the home my father built with his own hands. A man who didn't get past the 6th grade, was in the construction industry for the longest time. My mom came from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico when she married my father. They came with $18 in their pocket, and somehow they figured out how to save up enough to actually buy a little home. They were able to send my 3 sisters and I to college or the military. And then when they retired, they had been able to save enough that they didn't have to go off to Arizona or Idaho. They were able to stay here in California and retire. That is what I call the California dream. That is what I want to fight for as governor of this great state, because there are too many families today who can't aspire to do exactly that, what my parents did, even though my parents never had a chance to step into a college classroom. It's time for us to fight for that next generation, that young couple that's trying to figure out how to stay in California because they love it, but they're having a tough time and they can't afford to buy a house. For that hardworking, low-paid worker who is figuring out it is tough. It is tough to bring a family through this really difficult time of high cost of living. We need to fight for them. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm proud that I have been the only candidate to receive a statewide endorsement from the Young Democrats of California and the College Democrats of California. I want to be their champion because they want to live the lives that many of you and I have had a chance to live. And so I'm ready. I look forward to working with you, and I'm thrilled that you give me a chance to be here with you.
Short and sweet. I love it. Thank you, Secretary. We'll go right into questions. As a reminder to folks, we're going to try and prioritize people who haven't asked a question already. So Nelson, I see a question from Nelson and Nelsie. What are your thoughts of handling our cyclical revenue streams with new sovereign funds created by the state?
I first and foremost believe we have to come up with new revenues. There's no choice. The reason that we need more revenues is because the state has made some really valuable decisions. We're not going to let people go without health care. And we have too many employers in California who treat their employees as if all they have to do is pay them enough so they can go home and buy some food and pay their rent. And they never offer them health care insurance. California is not going to let people go without health insurance. And when I'm governor, and I will be the healthcare governor, having served 4 years as the Secretary of Health and Human Services under President Biden, I will make sure that we continue the march towards universal coverage. And so we will need to have the revenues it takes. And I believe that we can come up with any number of ideas. Sovereign Wealth Fund, let's consider that. How we tax the highest wealth and wealthiest of Californians, because most of them are paying at a tax rate that is less than the teacher, the firefighter, the police officer, the nurse in our communities. That's not fair. That's not paying your fair share. And so there are many ways that we can make this happen. And I know many of them because for 20 years, I served in Congress on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the tax writing committee. So I was very active in tax policy, and I'm very familiar with, especially the loopholes that exist that let corporations and the very wealthy skirt their share of paying for taxes. And so we'll make it happen. We'll also make sure we're frugal to make sure that the programs that we have value. I want to make sure, for example, when we spend $1 on homelessness, we're taking someone off the street. We have to show accountability with the monies that you do give us. And I intend to make sure that we are showing you that we're producing results with the money that we do collect.
Thank you, Secretary. Question from David. What is your approach to AI regulation?
David, the way I look at AI, we should harness it before it harnesses us. We should make sure that it is supplementing, not supplanting California workers. It should support the work that our workers do. It should make our workers more productive, but it's coming. And so let's be smart. Let's not wait as long as we did when we saw the internet start to blossom. I remember I was in Congress. The word was, hey, let this new industry blossom. Don't kill the goose before it lays that golden egg. Well, we let the goose not only lay an egg, but it went beyond that, and now we can't control it. We have to make sure we don't make the same mistake with AI. Let's let AI be an energy that we can harness, but let us make sure that we harness it and it doesn't harness us, so we can take the best aspects of it and control, regulate those that would go to the extremes on the other end.
Thank you, Secretary. Jennifer, I see your hand is up, but I'm going to come back to you if that's okay, if we have time. I want to give Manav an opportunity because he has his hand up to ask a question. So Manav, feel free to come off mute. I think you just remuted yourself.
My bad. Hi, Secretary Becerra.
How are you?
So last week, the Dublin teachers were on strike, and they were able to reach a deal. But obviously, this is happening in other school districts across the state too. So what will you do to ensure teachers are protected and they're able to fight for a living wage?
Well, first, teachers will have a seat at the table when I'm governor. Secondly, we're going to make sure that the hardest working and lowest paid have an opportunity to have their boat lifted with the rest of us. And that means that we have to make sure that teachers feel like they're being lifted and they can aspire. Because too many teachers within 3 to 5 years, they're out of here. They've moved on. They burn out. They don't get paid enough. They can't buy that house that I mentioned to you. And so we have to make sure we support our teachers. We have to make sure that every education dollar we send, especially through Prop 98, is destined to go to a classroom, not to pay the third party contractors and vendors who take a lot of money and never offer an educational moment for our children. And so I will make sure that we elevate teachers by making it worthwhile for them to make this a career, not just a temporary stop as they look for a better paying job. We need that, not just for them, we need it for our kids, because we want them to be trained by the most skilled people that can get our children ready to be the leaders of tomorrow. So I will be there, fully supportive of our teachers. I've walked the picket line with them and with others because it's time for us to reward them. We are the 4th largest economy in the world. We are a very prosperous state. Let's show that we recognize that and give the people that made that possible the opportunity to live out their career in that profession as teachers.
Thank you, Secretary. I see a question from Roxanne in chat. What policies would you implement to lower costs for Californians?
So Roxanne, one of the ones that I went to a little bit was healthcare. I believe that when I was Secretary of Health and Human Services, we made the Affordable Care Act affordable. When people were going onto the website of the ACA, 5 of 6 people who went onto that website who qualified for those subsidies were finding a health insurance policy with a premium of $10 or less. Let me repeat that. A monthly health insurance premium of $10 or less. Today, you're hearing the horror stories of people having to pay $500, $600, $700, $800 a month for those same kinds of premiums. That's ridiculous. That's what happens when you don't have a leader in Washington who cares about your health. We can make it affordable and we can drop the prices. I was the first secretary to negotiate lower prescription drug prices on some of the most expensive pharmaceutical drugs in the market, because I was able to sit, as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act, sit down with pharmaceutical companies to negotiate real reductions in price, up to 80% in some cases, from some of the most expensive drugs that are on the market. That's the kind of thing we need to do, because it is unaffordable to live in California if we don't fight for folks like that. We'll do that when it comes to housing. We'll build more homes so we can try to keep the pressure off of the demand. When you have high demand, prices go up. We have to kill that. I have already said I will put a freeze on property insurance prices on your premiums, because I think the insurance industry is making off like a bandit when they collect for years and years your premiums, and all of a sudden you have a claim, you find out that they've gotten out of Dodge, they've left, or they cancel your policy. That's not right. For all those families that have been through wildfires who are experiencing this, no more. So I have called for a freeze on property insurance rates and utility rates during a time that I will declare a state of emergency. I will have 120 days. Once I'm in the governor's office, I will have 120 days to sit the legislature down and let us come up with some answers. In that time, we'll pull back the curtain on what the insurance industry is doing, what utility companies, the private owned investing utilities are doing, to figure out why prices have gone up so high, and we'll take action so we can keep those prices where they should be. You should know what you're paying for when you get that property insurance. You should know that when you submit a claim, after years of paying for that insurance, that you're going to be able to get paid. There are still people from the Altadena and Pacific Palisades wildfires who still haven't heard what they're going to get and when they're going to get it from their claims for losing their homes. That's not fair.
Thank you, Secretary. I see a question in chat from Michelle, and then Jennifer, I will go to you, and then Shanna, and I think that might be it. But from Michelle in chat, why are our gas taxes the highest in the country, and what is your plan for reducing them?
Well, right now they're the highest in the country because Donald Trump started a unilateral war in Iran, and he did not have an exit strategy. One, he violated the Constitution. Two, he does what he always does. He thinks he's going to walk out of there a winner. He's already called this a success, and we are still losing and getting a lot of our troops injured. And so this is a disaster that Donald Trump created. So many of these man-made disasters, whether it's HR 1, the legislation that took $1 trillion out of the Medi-Cal program, the Medicaid programming in the United States, or whether it is his adventures abroad. He has taken his eye off the real prize, which is lowering costs for Americans. And now we see the result. Our gas prices were already high. Now they have gone even higher. And so what we have to do is be smart. We're transitioning away from fossil fuel. But what we have to do is do it smartly so that we don't leave working families behind who can least afford those hiking prices on anything, including gasoline. And so what we'll have to do is make sure that we're smart so that we transition in a smooth fashion from fossil burning fuels to electricity. And we see some of that occurring, but we have to really ramp that up. Even though Donald Trump, by the way, took away the support that we had to subsidize solar and wind, geothermal, we'll continue forward because we know that's the future, but we'll do it in a trajectory that doesn't leave working families behind. We will have to make sure that we have the refining capacity right now for those who still need fossil fuel. We will continue to move towards that cleaner energy, but what we will do is we will not have the fluctuations that make it difficult for the average family to be able to survive on a very tight budget. So we'll get there, but what we'll fight to do is have stability and predictability, and we'll fight to keep Donald Trump from destroying what we have in our economy here in California.
Thank you, Secretary. Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. What will you do to restore rooftop solar for our energy needs that have been dismantled by the Newsom administration?
So we need to move. Just talking about how we transition, rooftop solar is absolutely one of the ways we do that. All these new homes that are being built, rooftop solar, we have to make it more affordable. Unfortunately, for a lot of those working families I just mentioned, who are driving still fossil burning fuel in their cars, they're the ones that we need to help to make sure they can go to solar. And we need to provide that type of support so everyone can join in, because what we want to do is make sure that everyone is helping us along with the state making those investments. So I will promote rooftop solar. I will promote wind energy. I will promote battery storage. And we have to do all of these things smart, because we've seen, for example, and also in the Bay Area, how things can go the wrong way if you have battery storage plant that goes up in flames, we got to make sure we're safe. And so it's not just a predictable and sustainable trajectory to cleaner energy. It's one that's also a path with safety in mind as well. And so we'll get there. We have no choice. Climate change is occurring. It's already very hot in March, and we know wildfire season is no longer a season. It's now year round. And so we're going to move there, but we're going to do it smart. We're going to do it smartly, and we can do that. But we have to ask those who are the wealthiest to participate so we can make sure we can share in that move towards cleaner energy. We can share towards providing the support that's needed to make that happen faster. That includes rooftop solar.
Thank you, Secretary. Shanna, go for it. Shanna, do you want to come off mute? Feel free to ask your question. Shauna? All right. Maybe we'll come back to you, Shauna. Maybe you're having some tech difficulties. I will go into another question. The chat.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Now we can hear
All right.
you.
There you
It
go.
kicked me out, but I'm back. All right. Hey, I'm Shayna. I'm the CEO of Center for Excellence in Nonprofits, and I'm very concerned about the state of nonprofits. So I'm curious how you see the role of nonprofits and how you envision supporting the work that we do, especially in the face of all the cuts and the undermining of trust in what we do.
Shayna, our nonprofits are the tip of the spear. They are the innovators. They are the nimble entities that let us explore different ways of doing things. They're the ones that teach us in government how we can shift our model so that we're more productive, we're more efficient, and we help more people. And so I will use, as I always have, the nonprofit community. When I was Attorney General for California, I defended nonprofits from attack from the Trump administration. I also, by the way, went after nonprofits that were taking advantage of people who were generous donors who thought they were giving to a good cause. You know, everyone wants to give to that agency that helps abandon puppies. But if you find out that that agency is doing nothing for puppies and just pocketing your money, it's time to go after them. And so we did, because we want people to give. We want people to support nonprofits because, as I said, you're that tip of that spear that tells us where we next need to go. And we need to have everyone have confidence that when they want to give you money, it will go to a good purpose. So I am absolutely there with you. But having been an enforcer for 4 years, I will make sure that there's accountability, because we owe it to the taxpayers who are willing to make those contributions that their money will be well spent. That includes, by the way, in areas like healthcare. We have a lot of nonprofits that are securing a lot of money. They're acting like for-profit companies. We want to make sure that when you have a nonprofit status, you are benefiting the community where you are located, because we're giving you a tax break so you can do good. So do well, but do good as well.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Shayna. All right, this is it. We'll give you 1 minute, Secretary Becerra, for a closing statement. The timer will begin whenever you're ready.
Richard, I've taken on reckless federal governments when Donald Trump was president and I was Attorney General. I've taken on ruthless corporations. I've defended workers' wages, women's health, immigrant rights. I've launched civil rights investigations. I launched the 988 Suicide and Mental Health Prevention Lifeline. I have worked hard to make sure we can balance budgets. I balanced the largest budgets in some of the largest entities, like the Department of Health and Human Services, the largest public health agency in the world, with a budget larger than the budget of the state of California. No other candidate can say that. I have had to declare national states of emergency on more than one occasion and deploy the resources and personnel to make sure we address those emergencies and pull us out. The governor's office is not a place for on-the-job training, nor is it a place for inflated promises. What I commit to you is I will fight and win for that young couple that wants to live here. I will fight and win for the hardest working and lowest paid. I want your vote, and I'm glad you allowed me to be with you. And I wish you much luck as you make your decisions on whom to support.
Thank you, Secretary. Appreciate your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. I know our next candidate and guest is here. Can we pin Mr. Steyer? Hello, there he is. All right. Hi, Mr. Steyer. Welcome to the club. We're going to give you up to 5 minutes for an opening statement, and your time begins whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm running because Californians can't afford to live in California anymore. That is the number one issue. Of course, it starts with housing. I'm just trying to get things on my screen. Okay. Of course, it starts with housing, goes to healthcare, goes to electricity, goes to gas prices. That is the number one issue, and I'm sure we're going to have specific questions about that during the question and answer period. I want to say, though, that underlying that question of affordability is 45 years of working people getting the short end of the stick. And I view this election very much as a struggle between the working people of California and the richest Californians and the biggest corporations in California who want to control our politics and control our government more than they ever have before. Before we talk a little more about the campaign, I want to talk a little bit about myself, just to introduce myself to the people here who don't know me. The biggest thing to know about me is this: I come from a family who measure the value of their lives in terms of the positive impact on their communities and the states they live in. So starting as an example with my grandfather, who worked as a research scientist, believed that he was doing the biggest job he could do for the people around him and the planet, worked on early medical devices in terms of the electrocardiogram, never made more than $2,800 in a year. His daughter, my mother, was a teacher in some of the lowest income communities and in prison. That's how she gave back. My father was a naval vet who prosecuted the Nazis at the Nuremberg trials after World War II. My brother Jim has been a full-time advocate for at-risk kids since he graduated early from high school so he could work in the public schools and teach with my mother. And my wife, Kat Taylor, who some of you may know, has worked for 50 years as an advocate for economic justice, environmental justice, and racial justice. I'm the weird person. I started a business. Nobody else in my family had ever started a business, and they didn't understand it. I ran it for 27 years. I went from one room, no partners, no employees, no windows, to a pretty darn big business. And I walked away from it, and I was dying to walk away from it because actually I wanted to live the kind of life my family has always lived. And that meant giving back to the state of California and giving back to working people. And what does that look like? Well, part of it means taking on well-funded corporate interests who are taking advantage of Californians. And that means I took on at the ballot box and beat tobacco companies, oil companies, out-of-state companies who were gaming the state tax system, but were huge. And all of those people were afraid to take on, and we beat all of them at the ballot box. And I intend to continue to do that as governor. One of the things I've said is on my first day, I will call a special election and undo the corporate real estate tax loophole that people call split roll that's been on the books for over 40 years. And it's just worth over $20 billion a year to the state of California at the local level. And it's a completely fair thing to do, but the other truth is we need the money because of HR1, Donald Trump's huge bill, he's gonna kick 1 to 3 million Californians off Medi-Cal. Those people still need healthcare. We're not gonna let them die in the street. And that's gonna shoot a huge hole in our budget starting in February of 2027. So in every one of the policy areas implied by the concept of affordability, I have a short-term fix and a long-term structural answer. And so in every, for instance, in healthcare, we need to have the money to provide the healthcare that Californians need starting next year. But in addition, I'm for single payer because long-term, we need an answer on single payer. We need to control it because the continuing escalating cost of healthcare is eating up our budget. It's eating up every family in this state. It's eating up every business in the state, and it's eating up the state itself. So in every one of these issues, I have a short-term and a long-term solution. Let me say this. I know people think the answer in some of these cases is business because business is efficient. But in many of these cases, as in healthcare and also in electricity, businesses can be efficient at screwing us. We need a governor who will take on wealthy special interests. I'm that. I'm not taking money from anybody like that, so I can be dedicated just to the people of California. That's why I was willing to take on Trump and get 8 million signatures to impeach him in 2017 and 2018, because I could see he was running a criminal administration and was a threat to the whole country. I am someone who will stand up to special interests on behalf of working people, and that is what my campaign is about.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer, right on time. And just to reiterate for folks, we're going to prioritize questions from people who haven't yet already asked a question. There's a question that's pretty popular, I guess, right now in the chat. Mr. Steyer, the folks want to know, will you accept corporate PAC donations?
I have not, and I will not. You know, one of the things I'm trying to make clear is that I want to have no conflict in terms of who I'm representing, and that in every instance, I will just be representing the working people of California. And therefore, if you take their money, you got to take their calls. And I want to make everybody know that I can't be bought, and I will stand up for working people no matter what.
Thank you. I see a question from Eloise. Will you support a wealth tax?
So let me say this. I know that there is a billionaire's tax that's been proposed that has, I don't know where it stands in terms of the signatures, if it will be on the ballot or not. And I have some issues with the way that tax was devised and how it works. For one thing, it's a one-time answer for a long-term problem. I'm someone who supported a national wealth tax for years. And so the idea that the richest people in our society, the billionaires, and the big corporations should be paying more is something I absolutely support. But let me say this too. If you look at the propositions that I've won, every one of them brings in billions of dollars for Californians without charging Californians a penny. So does closing the corporate real estate tax loophole called split roll. So let me say this. I absolutely support taxing the richest Californians, and I will do it in a practical way to make sure we safeguard our economy and we make sure we continue to grow while actually we have no choice but to bring in more money from the biggest corporations and the people who own them.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer. There's a question from Gail in the chat, and then Lydia, I'll get to you. Gail asks, how would you address the lack of funding for California K through 12 public schools?
Well, if we do exactly what I said, which is to close this corporate real estate tax loophole, that money goes, because of the way that real estate taxes are paid, that money goes to local cities and counties. And by definition, by Prop 98, something like a little less than half of it will go to the public schools. And let me say this as well. I am somebody who has stated specifically we need to get back to being a top 10 education state. I think we're rated somewhere in the 30s. And as a big part of that is everyone thinks, or let me say this, there is a false idea out there that somehow we're spending a lot of money per pupil on education. On a cost adjusted basis, we're spending about, we're not in the top half of states in the United States in terms of what we spend per pupil. And a big reason that I want to close this corporate real estate tax loophole is so that we have enough money to support the kids, to support the teachers, and to make sure we get back to being a leading state in education.
Thank you. Lydia, feel free to come off mute.
Hi. Mr. Steyer, how will you continue to take on big oil as governor, and will you support a Make Polluters Pay resolution?
I'm going to go with hell yeah on that one. Look, I don't know how much the people on this call know about me, but I've spent, just doing the math in my head, about 20 years working in terms of climate and the environment. And I have a very simple way of thinking about this, but it starts with polluter pays, Lydia. Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't like companies who they keep all the revenues and they put the costs on their neighbors and on the taxpayers of California. When I think about the environment, I could give you the four things, which are polluter pays is number one. Environmental justice. Whenever we think about environmental rules, we need to make sure that environmental justice is there at the beginning, because we've structurally put environmental toxicity in low-income Black and brown communities. That's number two. Three is we need to deploy the hell out of what's here because we have the technology, and much of it is Californian technology. So we need to deploy the hell out of clean technology. It's cheaper, faster, and better. And lastly, we need to sequester using natural means. And that's a huge, huge business that we can develop in California. And we have the technology here. All of the new breakthroughs are here. That's a global business that can be led out of California. And we should absolutely be doing it because it's important to do. And it's good for our state.
Thank you. Kyoko has a question. How will you fill the gap in funding for Medi-Cal after the cuts from HR 1?
And that is, a little over 40% of it will go to schools, but the rest of it's probably going to go to healthcare. That is the money, over $20 billion for closing that corporate real estate tax loophole. That is the money that over 50% of it is going directly to healthcare. So that is the idea that is going to be the thing that fills the hole in the short run. But let me say this too. I am absolutely for single payer, and I'll tell you why. Healthcare inflation is eating us. It is eating every person, every family, every business, and it's eating the state budget too. And when I went and talked to the teachers who were striking in San Francisco, they hadn't struck in 60 years. They didn't want to strike. They're teachers. They like to teach. I asked them, what are you guys out for? And they said, basically, we can't afford our healthcare. We literally cannot afford to pay the $1,000 to $2,000 per month that we have to pay for healthcare at this point. And so what we're seeing is single payer plans around the world cost about half as much as what we pay. Half. And the results, the healthcare is as good or better than our healthcare. I don't think we have a choice. The whole idea that some of the people running for governor saying that the way we'll solve this is competition in the private sector. Well, the private sector's had about 50 years to prove they can bend the curve of inflation in healthcare, and they haven't. And so the data says, this is not about philosophy. This is just being practical. The data says the only way that we actually get a healthcare system where healthcare is a right and we can afford to deliver it as the state of California is by moving to single payer. It'll take us at least 3 years, which is why it's really critical to make the budget foot in the interim. But we have to start on day one moving to single payer because that is the long-term solution for the state of California.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer. Question from Lisa. Would you consider meeting with all of the Democratic candidates and together agree who has the best chance of defeating the Republican and then support that candidate?
Let me say this, Lisa, and I view my job here as doing what I'm doing right now, which is trying to get out and talk about what I stand for, who I am, and why you can trust me. There are going to be people who view their job, thank goodness, as trying to make the field work. My job, as far as I can see, is to try to do well enough so people stop worrying that the two highest vote getters are going to be Republicans. And so my job is to make sure that one of the two top vote getters is a Democrat and a progressive Democrat at that. And that's exactly what I'm working at, and I do that all the time.
Thank you. Evan has a question. What are your opinions on public sector unions?
My opinions on public sector unions. Look, I'm a big believer in working people. I'm a big believer in organized labor. I believe that unions in general are really the best representative of working people, both in unions and out of unions. And I feel as if that's true in the private sector and it's true in the public sector. And I understand people's concerns about that, but I am a strong believer in organized labor. And I will be, let me say this, I want to be a fair governor in terms of how we pay the people who provide the services to the people of California. And I will be also a very scrupulously careful governor because I understand that every dollar we save on in terms of waste or fraud, every dollar we save there is money we can spend for a kid, is money we can spend for a sick person. So I will be, I always say when my wife's in the audience, I'm the cheapest person in this room, and I'm not ashamed of it. But I want to make sure that we can pay state workers fairly. And let me give you guys an example so that you just understand where this is. I was talking to a union of the people who work at the UCs. the UC campuses, not the professors, but people who work as gardeners and custodians and different jobs like that. A bunch of them live in their cars. When I talk about affordability, we do need to bring these costs down, but I want you to know that the working people in this state are at their wits' end, absolutely at their wits' end. And so I think when I think about organized labor, I think they're doing their job to try and make sure that working people get a break, and they haven't been getting a break for the last 45 years.
Thank you. I think we have time for one, maybe two questions, but Liz wants to know, how do you answer the concern about here's yet another wealthy person trying to buy an election?
Well, let me say a couple things. First of all, my wife and I took a pledge to give away the bulk of our money while we're alive. And I guarantee you I'm not going to be a billionaire when I die. There's no chance. If my wife would shoot me if I even tried. That's the first thing you should know. Secondly, I've been working full time in this for 14 years. I mean, I walked away from my business 14 years ago. I'd done a whole bunch of stuff while I was working there, but for the last 14 years, I've been an advocate for justice, for climate, and for working people in California. So the idea that I'm just somebody who's, buying an election, the work that I'm doing, the things I'm talking about, we've had a 20-person policy shop in Sacramento for the last 10 years working on every progressive policy that's come down the pike about justice, about immigration, about unionization, every single one. So the idea that somehow I've been doing the work for 14 years full-time and before that. So no, I'm not embarrassed at all about standing up for the things that I've worked for, and trying to get things done. I think that having somebody who has no conflicts, who's not taking money from the corporations, who's actually strictly working for working people is something that we absolutely need in this state. Because if we're going to get real change, we're going to have to stand up to well-funded special interests.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer. One more question, then we'll end it. Joy asks, how will you make housing more affordable? Not just what, but how?
So I always say about housing, there's no silver bullet, it's silver buckshot. There are multiple things. Part of it is simplifying and shortening the permitting process. Part of it is working on zoning so that we build housing in the existing towns and cities where it is near public transportation. Part of it is making sure that the cities and counties get the money so that they don't feel they're getting unfunded mandates, so they're willing to give permits. Part of it is supporting and writing building codes so that we can actually manufacture housing the way we manufacture cars off-site. So there's a whole bunch of things. In addition, we need to use the unused public state properties as the land for new buildings. So there's multiple things that we need to do with urgency so that people can actually afford their rent, afford to buy a house, and actually can live the California dream. So that the governor's job to a large extent is making that happen, is being on top of the details, of doing the unglamorous work of untying the knots that snarl progress.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer. We'll give you 1 minute for a closing statement. The timer will begin whenever you're ready.
Okay. Look, I'm a progressive, and you can go through, how I feel about healthcare, how I feel about housing, how I feel about taking on the electric monopolies that charge us twice as much as the average in the United States of America. I am also a very practical person. And if you go back and look at all the money, the billions of dollars that I've raised for Californians from corporate interests who weren't paying their fair share, I've done it in a way to make sure that we continue to be the successful entrepreneurial state that basically imagines and builds the future. And if you look at the policy that I've put forward in terms of artificial intelligence, which I think I'm the only candidate who has a policy on artificial intelligence, it starts with protecting working people, but it's very much also about making sure that it continues to grow and that the people of California have a seat at the table. I'm a practical person progress.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the questions in chat. Appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Great, thank you. I know our next candidate and guest is here, Congressmember Eric Swalwell. There he is. Let's spotlight him. There we go. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Congressmember, for being here. We'll give you 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes for an opening statement, and the timer will begin whenever you're ready.
Hi there, give me 1 second. This is Congressman Eric Swalwell, staffer. 1 second.
No problem.
Sure.
Yeah, that background was a little orange.
Yes, sorry about that. All right, we're good to go. We're good to go.
He's thinking about Donald Trump, I think.
How y'all doing?
Thanks,
Hi.
Congressmember. Whenever you're ready, feel free to go for it.
Yeah. I am running to be working with you a firewall between the most corrupt, cruelest president ever and Californians who are running through the fields and factories where they work, people who see troops in their streets, and patients who have felt the thrust and the cruelty of someone who has pulled federal funding for cancer research dollars. Our state has had war declared against it, and I'm running to be a fighter protector who will stand up and shoulder to shoulder work with you against this administration. You have seen me, is my hometown club, in the arena for the last 10 years. And let's just get this out of the way. Money cannot buy you into the arenas where I have fought, from a council chambers in Dublin to a courtroom in Oakland to Congress over the last 14 years. Money can't buy you into those arenas. Money can't buy the experience of standing up to somebody as corrupt as Donald Trump. Some people have paid for petitions to impeach Donald Trump. I was in the Senate trial holding him accountable for what he did on January 6th. I have the only lawsuit that has survived Donald Trump and his new presidency. It's me and the January 6th officers. I'm the only member of Congress who testified to keep him off the ballot for the 14th Amendment, for the act of sedition that he committed on January 6th. And I lead the January 6th committee in Congress today. I know who this guy is. I stand up to him every day. And I'm not going to be afraid to go on offense every single day for Californians against that guy. I have said over and over, I will use the emergency powers of the office to make it clear to ICE thugs that if you wear a mask in our state, I will use my powers to take away your driver's license. You are unhirable in our state. For every job in the state and any law enforcement agency that relies on state funds, you have to be on offense against this guy. Otherwise, the most vulnerable in our community are on defense. Together, many of us have stood for people like Miguel Lopez and a 6-year-old boy named Joseph from Hayward, who was just deported 2 weeks ago with his mom to Colombia, a deaf child in our community who was cruelly taken out of his home without his assistive hearing devices. Together, we came together to elevate their story, to animate their experience, and make it clear this is not who we are. I have been that fighter protector with you in Congress, and I'm going to do it again as governor. But that's not why I'm running for governor. It's what you have to do. It's what you need to do. But what I want to do as governor is work with you to bring a new California, a California we can all afford. Right now in this state, the average first-time home buyer is 40 years old. That is absurd. It's absurd. We have to be a state where you can take your first job, have your first kid, buy your first home, God forbid, in the same decade. And so what I'm going to do on day one with the emergency powers of the governor's office is declare a housing cost crisis and put a 90-day shot clock on every agency that approves or denies housing in our state. So that's new apartments, new multifamily, single-family homes to surge supply to bring down the costs. Also, on growth, we're going to make sure that the anchor industries of our state, those that have enjoyed great wealth, are also responsible for lifting up wages and benefits in our state. We have a corporate accountability tax. And the deal is this: If you have full-time employees who are on state assistance, Medi-Cal or otherwise, there's going to be a surcharge for that. No more corporate welfare when I'm governor. That's the expectation of hardworking Californians, people like my parents, who know which employers are working to lift wages and benefits and which are acting predatory. I'm going to work every day to make sure we enforce that. And finally, I want to work with you to make sure that the cost to our rights is one that we are not just on defense, but on offense. We can't just be a blue state that's a little bit better as it relates to democracy than, say, Georgia or Alabama. We have to max out democracy and access to the ballot box here. As it relates to women's rights, we can't just be the abortion capital of the United States. We have to fund that right, as this president has declared war against us and has taken federal funding that increases access for women. I will be that champion because I have been that champion. And I so very much look forward to working and partnering with you all to fight and protect for Californians, but to write a new story on affordability, growth, and accountability.
Thank you so much, Congressmember. And as I will reiterate again, I'm going to prioritize folks who have not yet asked a question. Harjob has a question for you, Congressmember. Will you support the Bay Area public transit measure to fund our local transit municipalities? And how will you help municipalities like BART to solve their fiscal cliff?
I support it, and I've supported every transit measure in the past because, of course, we have to maintain the core. And I've worked with AFSCME Local 57 on what this means for them. But also, we need an expansion plan as it relates to transportation. And if I was to identify a weakness with BART or any transit agency in our state, is that we can't just imagine what it looks like to maintain the core. We have to expand. And so that's why I've supported Valley Link, which takes 50 miles of hydrogen-powered rail all the way out to Manteca, 8 to 10 stops along the way, 125 miles per hour, taking 30,000 cars off the road each day. That's a climate project, that's a jobs project, and that's a quality of life project that has people spend less time in their cars and more time with their families. So my job is to find as many revenue sources as possible. That's why our principal revenue source is our corporate accountability tax, but also to create resiliency as the fourth largest economy in the world, not be so dependent on the federal government, but really leverage that workforce and the capital we have in our state to make those infrastructure improvements.
Thank you, Congressmember. Question from Nelson and Nelsie. What are your thoughts of handling our cyclical revenue streams with new sovereign funds created by the state?
But California is the greatest country in the world. The greatest country in the world. We are a nation state, and we have to start acting like it. And I will ask the best of California to be ambassadors, people from the private sector, from the public sector, to go to capital markets around the world, to have embassies essentially in capitals across the world to raise into this fund, because we cannot count on the federal government. We are a donor state. We contribute to the federal government more than we take back. And look what happens. It fires in Altadena, Pasadena, the Palisades, and we can't even get the FEMA dollars that should be coming our way. That is absurd. It's an insult to our state, and we can't just keep having acts of war committed against us by this president and to do nothing about it. And that's why I'm going to stand up resilience for our state, and having a California research fund that we raise into from investments all over is going to be a bet that'll never go south, because I know if you bet on Californians, we will all do better and costs will come down.
Thank you so much. Question from Anna. What specifically are your priorities?
3 things: revenue, revenue, and revenue. We have to be able to pay for our public safety, public education, and healthcare obligations, especially with the president who's declared war against us. I told you about the corporate accountability tax. I told you about our sovereign wealth fund, essentially as a state, a nation state, and we're going to stand up a research fund for the state. But on day one, I can do something that no other candidate for governor can do, which is I can work with Hakeem Jeffries, who is likely to be the next Speaker of the House. And I tell you that because the Speaker of the House writes the budget. And with the power of the purse, you get to negotiate with the president. I was on Nancy Pelosi's leadership team back in 2019, the last 2 years of Donald Trump's first term. And I saw up close and personal as I worked with the speaker to negotiate back as much as we could get that had been taken in the first 2 years from those Trump tax cuts that he gave for the wealthiest among us. And in every budget negotiation, every continuing resolution, every omnibus package, we were able to claw back much of what was taken. I'm going to take the same approach as it relates to the big brutal bill and what that has done to Medicaid and rural hospitals to make sure that we get back as much as possible so we have more revenue to meet those obligations. That's what a day one Democrat does. That's what it means to have those experiences in the past and also to draw on those in the future by being a colleague of Hakeem Jeffries for the last 14 years and somebody who's appointed me to leadership positions in the last 2 years since he's been leader of the Democratic caucus.
Thank you. Marcel has a question. How will you regulate AI data centers and their environmental impacts?
Look, if they cause more problems than they solve, they can't do business in our state. That has to be the approach. If they're going to invest in energy and water infrastructure upgrades, then I will work with them. But I'm not going to allow, this continuance of the wealthiest in California coming in and benefiting from the rest of California and not doing anything to solve our problems. I will work with them if they can be constructive, but I'm going to be pretty clear about what the expectations are. And also just on AI in general, I'm a parent. I have an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. I want to make sure, first and foremost, we are protecting our kids, that we have more guardrails in place against the worst of AI and what it can expose them to. That's a parent-first approach. And look, my candidacy offers a governor who gets it. I have 3 little kids. I think about their education every single day. I have a wife. She works full-time. She's on the road almost as much as I am. I have a dad who's almost 80 and 2 in-laws who are almost 80. They have big dreams and, independence that they want for themselves, and also challenges on healthcare and affordability and long-term care. I have this wide aperture where I see what Californians are going through. I'm a working class Californian. That's how I was raised. I still have student loan debt. And when you have somebody who's just living the grit and the hustle and the struggle and understands why Californians work hard, what they think about for themselves, how they view their kids' future, and what they want to do to take care of those who raise them, you can be the best governor. And that's my goal, is to be a governor who gets it because I've lived it and I'll govern for it.
Thank you. I know there were a couple of other AI related questions in the chat, and so hopefully that helps answer some of those. Linda asks, Congressmember, do you support the billionaires tax?
No, I support the corporate accountability tax, which is not a one-time tax and which is not something that undermines Prop 98 and the funding that has to be guaranteed for our kids, their classrooms, and educators. And so I want to make this deal with any corporation in California. If you work to lift wages and benefits, we can lower your taxes. If you're not going to do that, you're going to pay more, and there's going to be a surcharge for everybody who you have put on corporate welfare. That is a more sustainable revenue stream, but also gives us the best chance at lifting wages. Because right now, with costs going up as they are, with gas, healthcare, education, groceries, I believe we have a better shot at lifting wages to attack these costs than doing anything that can bring the costs down. And my goal is to see growth in wages, pay, benefits.
Thank you, Congressmember. John has a question. Some experts say that electricity rates are high because of the political lobbying of utilities. Others have suggested that it is because Public Utilities Commission regulators are understaffed. What do you see as the problem, and how would you propose addressing high electricity and natural gas prices?
I'm going to surge the supply of renewables across our state. We have 400 plus miles of aqueducts, and we have a twofer solution there. We lose thousands of gallons a day to evaporation as it moves across our state, particularly to the Central Valley, and we pit communities against each other. And also, we don't have enough solar on the grid to meet the demands of the grid. And so along those aqueducts, I'm going to have 400 miles of solar. What that's going to do, because solar requires cooler temperatures, it's going to reduce evaporation, increase water that can travel through the state, but also increase energy that is added to the grid. Also, to put back in place net metering so that people who put solar on their residential or commercial properties receive more back from the state. There's a lot we can do, but an abundance of more renewable energy is the best pathway to do it. And by the way, we did this in Dublin when I was a council member. We took every city facility and we put solar on it. We upgraded the HVAC systems to be cleaner and greener. And we took every single streetlight and made it LED also, so it consumed less energy. And within the first 3 years, we saved $5 million. I know the energy savings that we can do when we scale that out across California.
Thank you, Congressmember. I think we have time for probably 2 more questions. Michelle
We're just
asked,
warming up.
well, we could have you here all day, but we really want to respect your time. Michelle asks, do you believe that Airbnb and Vrbo's taking of millions of homes off of the rental market highly contributes to our housing shortage? What are your thoughts around changing this?
Yeah, well, so what I see with the proliferation of Airbnbs and Vrbo's is that people are so eager and in need to find ways to support themselves that they will invite strangers into their home to monetize that. And so we have a supply problem in California. And my job as governor is to increase the number of apartments on the market so the rents are lower, to increase the number of multifamily, to increase the number of single family homes, and to understand why people would drive their own car or rent out a room in their own home to supplement their income. I want us to be a state where one job is enough. And I saw parents work multiple jobs, as many jobs as they could take during the day to bring home as many groceries as they could afford for 4 boys at night. One job has to be enough. And if we get it right and we have enough supply, we can solve both of those challenges.
Thank you. Jackie asks,
hey, Jack.
do you support the Make Polluters Pay Act?
Yeah, in California, for energy, we have to make it safe, we have to make it clean, and when we do that, we should make it happen. And I will take the same approach that my office took when I was in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, which is we will go after people who break the law through pollution, contamination, and we see this, by the way, in Pleasanton. We have a PFAS challenge, and I have delivered millions of dollars back to the district through congressionally approved earmarks that have worked to remove the toxins. And so, yes, we have to aggressively fund enforcement. Otherwise, we will not be a state that leads the way with clean air and clean water.
Thank you, Congressmember. I think we have time for one more quick one, which is a lot of folks are asking, do you take corporate PAC money? Have you and will you?
Look, my approach here is Democrats. If we are up against Republicans, and by the way, I'm up against somebody who's spent $100 million of money that was made off of funding prisons that housed ICE detainees. So my role here as governor is to get rid of money and politics. And I'm telling you, as governor, I will pass the most aggressive campaign finance related laws that are the most transparent. And my goal is to have publicly financed campaigns. And why can't we be the first state that publicly finances campaigns and closes election windows? What if we had an election that only had a 90-day window on it, and we campaigned based on ideas rather than what I'm seeing right now, which is the politics of personal destruction? However, until that's the case, I have always voted for in Congress the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the People Over Politics for the People Campaign Finance Act that gets rid of dirty money and dirty politics. But I am not suggesting that right now, as long as candidates are up against unlimited, non-transparent funds in politics, that we should just fight these battles with one hand tied behind our backs. But you should judge us by any corporation that supports us. And that's going to be my approach, is judge me on what I have voted on in the past and my values, and judge me on what I'm telling you I'm going to do, which is to get rid of dirty money and unlimited, non-transparent money in our politics.
Thank you, Congressmember. We're going to give you 1 minute for a closing statement, and the timer will begin whenever you're ready.
I'm coming to you today to be a fighter and protector for California, but to write a new California story on affordability, growth, and accountability. And look, I have the benefit and the burden that You know me. For 20 plus years, I've worked out of the IBEW hall on behalf of Democratic campaigns, and I have been in the arena. And I've seen, as I said, some campaigns spend over $100 million, much of it trying to define me. But you know who I am. You know who I've stood up to. You know what I've put on the line with you shoulder to shoulder with me, and you know what we can do. And I see beyond this president. We're going to get through this. And I'm going to do that as governor to hold him accountable, get us through it, and with you, have our own Project 2025 with California as a laboratory as far as what we can do to lift up wages and benefits, to honor working families in California. And I'm proud to be endorsed by Senator Adam Schiff, California firefighters, SEIU, including not just SEIU, IBEW 469, our local DC painters. And today we learned the California Labor Fed. We are the working families candidate, and I am honored to have your support again if you choose to go in that direction. And we will go shoulder to shoulder all the way, not just at the ballot box and not just transition, but the reason we all do this on a Monday night, late, to win and govern for change. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Congress member. Appreciate your time. Thank you for being here and appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
Perfect. I know our next and last candidate and guest is here, former Controller Betty Yee. Well, I'm just scanning through to see where she's at. There she is. Okay, very
Good evening.
cool. There we go. Okay, hello, Controller. We're going to give you up to 5 minutes for an opening statement, and your time begins whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Democrats. It's a pleasure to join all of you and just to spend some time with you about my candidacy for governor. Many of you know me. I'm your former two-term state controller and also served on the Board of Equalization as your representative for just over a decade. I'm running for governor because I am the only candidate in the race who has had statewide executive experience, deep fiscal and financial experience. I was a former state budget director, as well as I said, a member of the Board of Equalization and state controller. I am running because, as with many of the candidates, we want to deal with the affordability issues, but frankly, we need to do more. We are seeing this Trump administration target California in ways that are really creating such havoc. And part of the reason why I believe he is attacking California is because we're vulnerable. We've not built the economic resistance that we need to have in all of our communities to strengthen our communities. And when I think about all the communities that have been terrorized by ICE raids, particularly, we need to really double down in terms of investing in these communities, in terms of local and regional economies that can uplift these families and also be able to just help us create economic and environmental sustainability for the long term. I'm running on a couple of platforms. One, obviously, affordability with respect to housing, healthcare, electricity rates, and then also looking at how we continue to make investments in our public education system so that we can have the ability to grow our economy in particularly high demand areas of work. And then lastly, really focusing on the impacts of climate change. I hope everybody is withstanding the heat, standing up to the heat well, but climate change is really wreaking havoc, and particularly when we don't have the opportunity for this federal government to lean in heavily on that. You know, California has made a lot of progress, but we've also had a lot of backslides as well. And one of the things I want to truly focus on is how do we continue to aggressively accelerate our deployment of renewable energy, particularly solar and rooftop solar. We were on a trajectory to do really well in terms of getting rooftop solar to all of our communities, but we need to get back on that path. We need to hold our investor-owned utilities accountable in terms of being able to improve the grid so that it can accommodate all of our clean energy, and also hold them accountable with respect to the rates that they've asked the California Public Utilities Commission for. And as governor, I will be sure the CPUC exercises its complete audit authority with respect to what we're getting for these increased rates and being sure that they're doing their part to move us in a more accelerated way to a renewable energy economy. I have been in this race for almost 2 years. I'm running a grassroots campaign. I do not take corporate PAC money. I don't take oil and gas money. I don't take, frankly, tech money. I don't take a lot of money because in my career as a member of the Board of Equalization and as controller, I never wanted to miss a vote. And I never want to be conflicted out in terms of money that I took and not being able to fully participate in the matters of that I was responsible for. So This is my history. And as I think about this campaign, I'm very proud of the grassroots campaign we've been running. This sets us apart from the rest of the candidates. And frankly, I am not concerned about having two Republicans at the top of the ticket coming out of the primary. I'm concerned about the impact of the billionaires class on California. I'm running against a billionaire, and we've got a billionaire supporting some of our candidates. And so I think that's the bigger threat for California. And this will be a test of whether grassroots campaigns and campaigns that are focused on working people are going to continue to have viability over those that are bought by billionaires. So this is my outlook on this race and why I believe I have an opportunity to get through the top two, because we're running a different kind of race and we're doing it all with grassroots money, with individual donors. Most all of my donors are individual donors. And I'll just end by saying this so that we can have some questions. And that is, we are really at a trajectory here in terms of how we're going to stave off the attacks from the Trump administration, but also how we're going to actually grow California's economy. And we can do that. And that's how I believe we can become less vulnerable against this Trump administration and for future downturns in the economy as well. Creating jobs that are stable in all of our communities, looking at how we deal with the worst polluters in California and being sure they're paying their fair share in terms of the damage that they're doing to our communities, but also looking to stand up new sectors of the economy, including growing the healthcare workforce, and also looking at how California can become the industrial leader in climate technology. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions, but just wanted to share a little bit about my vision for the state, and certainly you know about my work in the past, and I look forward to your questions and earning your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Controller Yee. All right. Our first question is from Chris. How will California not be forced to change our election policies if Trump's SAVE Act is passed? California's elections are free, safe, and convenient for all with mail-in ballots for all registered voters, and we want to keep it this way.
Yes. So, I first let me and if people want to do it with a show of hands, but I just wanted to ask, in preface to this question, how many people have taken a Know Your Rights training as relates to how we can take care of our immigrant neighbors and communities? Thank you. I hope everyone has, because, with all these rights being attacked, and particularly with Trump coming after our really strong election system here in California, we're pretty soon going to have to be doing a Know Your Voting Rights training. From my perspective, this is a fundamental pillar of our democracy that he's trying to kick out from under us, and we are not going to have anything to do with it. To have a strong governor, a Secretary of State, and an Attorney General to defend California in this regard is going to be very, very critical. And also looking at how we join with other states who are going to be also under the same attack. And so this is really the agenda of this administration. I always say it kind of starts with immigrants, but it's going to come after all of us in different ways in terms of our rights and protections. So I hope that, and I know as a former officer of the party will be standing up a very strong voter protection program as well.
Thank you, Controller. Angela, I see your hand is up. Feel free to come off mute.
I'm sorry, it was left up from the last question.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thank you, Angela.
All right.
Okay. Lydia has a question. What will you do to support small businesses in California?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things with small businesses, aside from the usual hurdles of access to capital and being sure that they have enough support in terms of not just establishing their business, but also growing their business here, is this. I do want to have essentially an all-of-government regulatory streamlining effort when I become governor. Not to get rid of regulations, but how do we look at how we can make it easier for those who need to comply with them to do so? For many businesses, there are layers of regulations where it's a cost to actually hire experts to help them figure out how to comply with them. And for small businesses especially, I want to be sure that we have a cadre of navigators throughout the state that are going to be helping our small businesses be able to just understand what their requirements are, and to also, as I say, just have them be a resource to small businesses so that they can access all of the tools that they need to be successful.
Perfect. Thank you, Controller. Anyone? Oh, I see a question from Anne. What is your plan for financing public education and childcare?
Yeah. So one of the things we need to do is to really look at how we can better integrate universal childcare with our public education system. We want childcare to be part of the early child education system. And when we see programs emerge like transitional kindergarten, universal childcare, they really do have to be integrated, because what we're doing is actually starting the early development of our young children. And I hope that can be seamless with respect to how that is additive and valued as far as their success as they enter their formal learning. So what I will do is look at how we stand up a universal system of care, making sure that the costs of care are the full costs of care are actually covered by our child care providers, particularly our family child care providers that are putting a lot of money out of pocket just to be able to provide the service, and bless them for doing so, because we need them in terms of how this economy needs to work. But I would say this is one where we are going to need to raise revenue to be sure that we have a long-term investment plan and how we look at how we provide childcare that's integrated as part of the early child education system, and being sure that we're paying childcare providers more, and also being sure that those who need it have access to it.
Thank you, Controller. We just got an influx of questions, so we'll try and get through as many of them as possible. Catherine asks, what will you do to help with affordable housing?
Yes. So housing affordability is due to a lot of different things. But really, when I think about the cost of housing, one is just the delay in the process in terms of getting projects approved. So I know that the legislature has been doing a lot of work to try to streamline the approval processes. They have exempted some provisions of CEQA as well. I hope that this is not going to end up hurting us in terms of the environmental protections that we need. But really, the affordable housing, to me, the biggest hurdle is the underlying cost of land. With any project, the legislature has also approved a number of bills where we have now the ability to build on public lands, surplus lands, lands owned by educational and public educational entities. So anything like that is going to actually help with affordability. I personally like the community land trust model, where a nonprofit or a local government actually has jurisdiction over the land, and what is built on it remains affordable in perpetuity. So there are lots of models that we can use, but the last thing I want to do is to actually reinstate redevelopment. In any jurisdiction, there are areas of blight, and when we talk about affordability, a lot of it has to do with just accelerating what we build so that we're not delaying projects that actually then cost more. But with redevelopment, you actually can then look at options like housing rehab, reuse, and adaptive reuse that could be very helpful in terms of sustaining affordability in the long term.
Thank you. Ron asks, as controller, you probably have a sense of the budget deficit outlined by the legislative analyst. How would you solve this?
Yes. First, I think we have to be very honest about the fact that we have a deficit. It doesn't get solved if we don't acknowledge what it is, so that we can talk about what the options are for attacking it. We have had a structural deficit for quite some years now because we frankly haven't been acknowledging that this was coming. We have, and why we're going to be in a deficit situation is because we know that our revenue system is very volatile, tied to stock market performance, and right now very much tied to AI performance. So we're going to have to do a number of things. One, we are going to have to make cuts. To me, cuts are not going to be not what Doge did. It's going to be about how we can streamline what government does so that we can have some efficiencies and actually serve our Californians better. Secondly, we're going to have to raise revenue, and I know that's a subject of debate now, but the revenue that I'm focused on right now is to be sure that we can renew the temporary tax increases that are already in our revenue base that was enacted by Prop 30 and then subsequently Prop 55 under Governor Brown's administration. And then thirdly, to do what I just spoke about earlier, and that is to grow the economy. We need to build this fiscal and financial resilience against, as I said, future federal funding cuts and then future downturns in the economy. We need an economy that actually works for everyone. And so how we can create these jobs, as I said, growing the healthcare workforce in areas that where the needs are, so that we can actually have members of that community actually serve those who are in need. And then also looking, as I say, good paying, stable jobs, particularly in the renewable energy economy.
Thank you. Nathan, I see your hand up. Feel free to come off mute.
Hi, Betty. Just a huge fan of your work as controller, and I'm really glad that you're talking revenue because I've always wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think is the best approach to Prop 13 reform? What do you think is the best timeline for pushing out a new initiative on that? And finally, do you think that this should be somehow tied to maybe a reduction in individual income taxes in the
Yes,
state?
yes, and yes. You're reading my mind. Yes. This is really hard work. I tried to do this during my term as controller through a Council of Economic Advisors, and it was not taken well because people feel threatened when we talk about taxes, that they're going to be bearing a bigger burden. But what we really need is stabilization of our system where we take a little bit of the volatility away from the income tax, and we can do that by spreading some of that to what we can do in the property tax side, the two most progressive taxes in our system. And I do think with respect to the property tax, simplicity is always the best. And so whether it's looking at just adding whatever incremental percentage or portion of a percent, and then trying to take down some of that volatility by reducing some of the income tax rates would be good. And I'm talking about a revenue neutral situation right now, not for the purpose of generating revenue. But I do think that would stabilize the system to where we wouldn't have these big swings, so that when the market's down, we're really deep in the tank, and when it's up, we have huge surpluses that we are able to put in a rainy day fund, but that I think the legislature does not have much discipline in terms of spending it all. So, but yes, Prop 13 has a place. And I think we can also use it as a way to kind of deal with some equity issues with respect to, pre-Prop 13 and post-Prop 13 homeowners as well. We're not going to drive anybody out of their homes, but I think the idea that on the same block that you can have people paying just such huge, variances in property taxes is not going to be, it's not going to be sustainable, particularly as property values continue to go up.
Thank you. I'm going to combine these next two questions from Michelle and Shayna. How many state budgets were balanced when you were controller, and do you foresee balancing our budget or ending in the black?
Yeah. Um, I'm not sure that's the question to be asked. Look, anybody can balance a budget on paper, but I would say that for me, transparency and accountability can be really important. And by that, I mean, I just think we have to come clean about what our situation is, because when we raise revenue, we're going to the voters. And by the way, we need not go to the voters. We have supermajorities in each house of the legislature that can actually take this action. But we choose to go to the voters. And so I think when the voters vote, I think they deserve to know just, what this revenue is actually going to help accomplish, given the deficit that we have. So budgets are they're required to be balanced. So they are balanced by and large on paper. When I was controller, we had budget surpluses, so they were definitely balanced. But I also raised an alarm that we were not putting away enough for the rainy day. We should have been increasing the percentage that we were socking away in our rainy day fund, and knowing too that the federal COVID relief would be temporary, so that we could actually have some cushion when that relief went away. So they were balanced the entire time that I was controller. We never had to borrow to pay the bills for the state when I was controller, and I hope that we can get to a place of where we can do that again. But we have to raise revenue to stabilize the system. Right now, the cost of borrowing would be so high that it would be equal to some program expenditures, because we don't have a stable revenue source to pay stable revenue to pay back any kind of debt.
Thank you. We have time for one last question from Lisa. How will you make sure there are no detention centers here? And if there are, there is no sexual abuse happening in them, along with shutting down ICE, kidnapping, and trafficking?
Sure. Well, first of all, I know we're all working on just taking back the House this midterm election. We have to do that, and I think that's our best shot in terms of shutting down these detention facilities. But I also would be working very, very in a very focused way with the local jurisdictions where our detention centers are housed. I mean, the idea that we're allowing these detention centers to be here and to actually be violating constitutional protections with many involving many who are detained there is just really unconscionable. So I would be working with, for example, California City down in Kern County to see what we can do to shut that down, and also to really understand who's in these facilities, because as congressional members are going to visit these facilities, they see the horrific conditions, but behind every person who's in there, there's a human story about why they probably shouldn't be there. And so I would do everything I can to shut them down within our state authority, but also I'm going to work my tail off to be sure we win back the House so we have a shot at just defunding all of these detention centers.
Thank you, Controller Yi. We are going to go into 1 minute for your closing statement. The timer will begin whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a privilege to really represent all of you in my respective roles in the past. Look, I'm running for governor because I really, truly believe that my background, my values, and the way that I govern has really created a track record of just accomplishments that is needed right now in California. I'm proud to be the sole endorsed candidate of Progressive Democrats of America, both national and California. I also am endorsed by the National Women's Political Caucus, the Asian American Action Victory Fund, but a whole coalition of groups that really respect my record of progressive governance. And so I would be honored to earn your support. This is not a time for anybody to come into a job who needs on-the-job training. I won't need on-the-job training. I'm ready to get to work on day one, roll up my sleeves. And lastly, I am not interested in running for president of the United States. I want to be a good governor, and I'm going to do this job well for all of us.
Thank you, Controller Yi. Appreciate you being here. You killed it. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you,
we want to
everyone.
respect your time. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
And that is all, folks. As I mentioned earlier on in the meeting, we had 2 more candidates who unfortunately had last-minute conflicts and couldn't join us tonight. But thank you all so much for the amazing questions. Sorry we weren't able to get through all of them, but hopefully these answers gave you all a little bit of context of where the folks stand and where the candidates lie. And really appreciate all of your all's thoughtfulness, and thank you for being here. And we are only 2 minutes over, which is kind of an achievement, but definitely appreciate you all. And I will turn it back to Jackie. I think we are about to talk a little bit about how ballots will work, who is eligible for the endorsement ballot on the Tri-Valley Dem side. Again, if anybody is having issues or wants to know if they're eligible to vote, please let us know in the chat and we will help you out. But in the meantime, we're going to pivot into our regular club business stuff. And so thank you all so much for being here. Feel free to stick around if you'd like to hear what we have in store. But that's the end of the candidate forum portion. So thank you very much.
Okay, let's see. Am I unmuted here? Can you hear me? I am preparing to blast out. I'm just checking it to see if it went out automatically. It will come from the same notification where you get your notice about like tonight's meeting. It's going to come from that constant contact. I set up all of our members to receive this, and we are going to leave this ballot open until tomorrow at midnight. So you can re-watch the recordings from tonight or catch up if you missed something. And we'll send out the ballots. If there's any problem with ballots, if you believe you are a member of the Tri-Valley Dems, you can email tvdemsmedia@gmail.com, and I'll put it in the chat here in a second, and I'll make sure that you get your ballot. And again, if you were a member last year, you can still renew your membership today and vote. However, if you are brand new to the Tri-Valley Dems, if you're brand new membership, we do require that 28-day wait period before you can vote in one of our endorsements. So if you have not been a member before, but you want to vote, let's say next month, when we endorse our congressional candidates, you can join today and vote next month. If you were a member renewing from last year, you can renew and vote. However, do it now, because we're going to pull that list. Alan's going to send me an updated list tonight of everybody who is a paid member, and we'll send out any last minute ballots tonight. Look for those within the next half hour to an hour in your inbox. Again, this is going to come from the MailChimp, or excuse me, the Constant Contact notice. So look for that. And let's see, before I blast that out, let's go through some of the regular club agenda items. Just a thank you to our members that are joining us from San Ramon Valley Dems. I heard Alameda City Dems. I heard Livermore Indivisible, Indivisible Tri-Valley, Indivisible Tracy. Thank you to all our Indivisible members, and thank you to Richard Lee, who set up and coordinated all of the discussions that we had tonight. Protester training and de-escalation. We are partnering with Indivisible Tri-Valley in this month's No Kings rally, and they have generously provided some de-escalation training. We will have peacekeepers on site. They will go to the Livermore event first and then over to the Pleasanton event. But it is always very useful to have folks trained on de-escalation. One of the big keys that I learned is to just ignore some of these people. There's no sense getting into a debate with these folks, even for those folks that reel you in, and they sound reasonable. So this is a really important training. If you're going to be participating in the No Kings event, you might want to participate in this. Let me put this in the chat. So thank you, Indivisible, for these wonderful trainings. Also coming up, January 22nd, with the San Ramon Valley Club, they are having Dr. Dan Farber, UC Berkeley professor, Trump and the Constitution. So I will paste as well in the chat the San Ramon Valley Club. So that will be another great event. As well as, of course, our No Kings. So No Kings, we're going to be in Livermore, we're going to be in Pleasanton. I'm sure there's going to be other protests in Walnut Creek and other locations. So look for the No Kings events. We'll be sending those out. We are co-sponsoring the Tri-Valley No Kings event. And that one will be in Pleasanton, though, of course, again, if you can make both in Livermore and Pleasanton, it's been coordinated so that you can attend both. And here is the event in Pleasanton for the No Kings. Let's see. Oh, another special meeting on Wednesday is Livermore Indivisible is having a Zoom meeting on an update on the war. Yep, go ahead. Somebody talking? Let me paste that in the chat. This is a special Zoom meeting with Dr. Zahar Razavi, an associate professor and director of Iran and Middle Eastern Studies. So that is being held in Livermore Indivisible. I do not have a link for that, but I will send it out to our membership. So with that, we can open it up for officer reports while I blast out the ballots. Alan, do you want to provide your report? Do we have Alan
Certainly.
here?
First off, I just want to say what a wonderful presentation that was. How
Thank you.
smoothly it went off, and there is none of those candidates would be embarrassed to vote for. I mean, every one of them was good, and it's the best thing I think the club has ever done. Okay, as far as our finances for the last month, we had income from membership of $575. We had credit card fees for people who bought, joined online of $24.82. Media expense, we had to expand our Zoom coverage to accommodate all the people who were on tonight, which was $8.14. So we made that. It left a total income of $570, expenses of $32.96, and an overall profit for the month of $542.04. We had a beginning balance of $2,865.88, $542.04 income, which leaves us a balance of $3,407.92. Also, I just checked, we added 4 more members tonight, and as of yesterday, we had 103, so we're up to at least 107 members, compared to 81, which was our final total for last year, which is excellent. Our income last year at this time, we had, oh shoot, I got that wrong. Last year at this time, we had around $2,900, or no, last year at this time, we had $3,217.91. So we're a little bit ahead of that, and which is good. But again, if people got something out of this, hopefully you'll want to join the club. Thank you.
Alan, one outstanding thing regarding, I did follow up with Valerio regarding our party that we co-sponsored with Jerry McNerney.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I will, we do need to submit either a check or an online, like we agreed to. It's $400. So
just let me know and it's on its way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And let's see, Ellis Goldberg. Do you have a political director's report?
Right. Actually, I had a question about the ballot. You didn't go into this. There are 2 possibilities for the ballot, and I don't know which one Richard has chosen. One possibility was for each candidate, we say endorse or don't endorse. And the second possibility is only vote for one of the gubernatorial candidates. And I'm just wondering which one of those alternatives was chosen before the ballot was sent out.
Ellis, per the bylaws, we cannot unfortunately use that first method of voting. So we sent out a ballot and it's just a straight vote. It has all 8 of the Democratic candidates plus a no endorsement option. And if you'd like to abstain, then you just don't pick an option. And for folks who are not aware, our club bylaws state that a candidate needs at least 60% of the total vote to receive our endorsement. Yes, that is a high threshold, especially in a crowded race like this, but that is per our club bylaws. No endorsement does count towards the final vote tally, but an abstention does not.
And if I may add, the reason we went to this method, Ellis, is we found ourselves in violation of the TVDEMS bylaws. You cannot endorse more than one person. You cannot endorse more people than seats exist. And when you do that, you get into trouble with the county bylaws. So in other words, we can't say we endorse them all, we love them all. It would be nice, but we can't do that any longer.
We did that in the candidates that got the most votes.
Yeah, and we got in trouble with the committee, and we are harder.
Okay, I won't argue that with you. Okay, as far as the secretary's report, we have what's the Phantom taking the minutes, and I believe you sent out the minutes to the membership. So the only thing that was pending in the minutes was something about the Make Polluters Pay Act and Eloise and I decided to back burner that until we're better prepared to deal with that. The only other announcement is that what has been the Saturday noon to 1:30 protest in Dublin has now moved to Bollinger Canyon Road in front of San Ramon City Hall, and in fact in that overpass. And we had a rather good turnout on Saturday, and so we've moved a little bit further north, a little bit out of the Tri-Valley, but it would be argued that San Ramon is part of the Tri-Valley. So those of you who are looking for the Dublin protest, move up to San Ramon, right next to Central Park, on Bollinger east of 680. And that's my report for tonight.
Thank you. I did blast the ballot. It came in my inbox. It ended up in promotions. So please check, you know, the updates and promotion folders if you have a Gmail account. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but Gmail filters a lot of stuff and puts them into separate categories. So make sure to check for this message. The subject matter is Vote Now for Governor, and it came from the Tri-Valley Democratic Club. Any issues with voting, or if you did not get your ballot, please email the email in the chat, TVDEMS at tvdemsmedia@gmail.com. And we are going to keep this ballot open until tomorrow at midnight. So don't stress if it didn't work or you didn't get it right away. Just email us and we'll make sure to get you your ballot. Again, if you are brand new and you just joined the club for the first time a day ago, you will not be able to vote in this matter. However, if you have been a member in the past and you've renewed, you're good to go. And if you are a member and have yet to renew, or you just renewed tonight on, you know, while we're having our meeting, I will get with Alan after this call and get all new members or people who renewed and send you an email a little later tonight. Kyoko, did you have a question? I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's not a question, just adding on to what Elise was saying. Individual tribal started Saturday noon protest to be kind of on the road. So March and April will be in San Ramon, and we will move again to other city, possibly Pleasanton. And No Kings is in Pleasanton on November 28th, so that day we do not have any rally in San Ramon. Also, we got some new people, and we will have Wednesday rally at 5 p.m. at the Crow Canyon. So that is also in the Mobilize, and I did put the ITV Mobilize link, so you can find them. We would love to increase our reach in San Ramon, Danville, Alamo area. So thank you.
Thank you. And I do have the other organizations here. I saved it in my notes. I wanted to share with you all. We do appreciate our sisters and partners and all of our organizations and Indivisible Beyond. If your city's not listed here, check out Indivisible or check out the No Kings. There's actions going on all around the country. So thank you. We're all in this together. Thank you, Indivisible. One other little fun thing that will be going on, and this was shared from our friends at the Castro Valley Democratic Club, is they're going to be practicing some some good debate songs and inspirational songs. I've shared that. So learn songs to make good trouble, and that's happening on Sunday, March 22nd. And here is the link, if I can share it. I guess maybe I did it too long, too many characters here. I did share it with our club members, but there's the Castro Valley Democratic Club. So on the 22nd, and again, I will share that event with members. I'll open it up to new business. Anyone? Any other business?
Jackie, did you want me to talk about the transit measure real quick?
Yes, Manav. Thank you so much for reminding me. And next
right.
month, we will have a full presentation on the transit measure. However, I asked Manav to speak briefly because he is doing action right now, and we don't want to miss any of this precious time to get those signatures. So Manav, take it away.
Okay, I'll show my beautiful face. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so basically, we've been going really strong for the Bay Area Transit Measure, and I'm going to keep it short. So basically, right now, we are in signature gathering mode until June, and we need 200,000 signatures across the 5 Bay Area counties to basically get this measure on the ballot. And next month, we'll have a presentation on it from Connect Bay Area, which is one of the main organizers behind this measure. And basically right now, if you want to sign the signature, they will have events across the Bay Area. But if you really if you really care about this measure and you really want to sign it right away, I got a petition from the folks here, and I'm gonna try to be around the Tri-Valley as much as I can, so you can sign it. Or I guess this past weekend, we were at Dublin St. Patrick's Day, and we got so many signatures. We filled out 10 packets of signatures. So we'll be around the Bay Area, and they're going to come to important events like Livermore Street Fest and the rodeo and Pleasant Key Farmers Markets, so that we can try to get more support around here in the Tri-Valley. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other new business? Anyone? I see here, Kashef shared some, you want to learn how to play cricket. They're learning how to play cricket in Dublin. Kashef, you want to unmute and talk about it real quick? Share it. I don't know if we have the actual link here. I see a bit.ly. Does that link work? Yeah. Any other new business?
Sorry, could I take myself off mute? This is Kashif, launching
Oh.
my campaign for re-election for City Council for Dublin, and I have a first event scheduled for Sunday at 8:30 at Emerald Glen. It's a fun 1-hour long session on how to play cricket. I'm sure you've all seen it, and this is your chance to learn how to play.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Jackie, one question that's coming up in the chat is, I think some folks did not realize that our meeting today started at 6:30 because we normally start at 7. So a number of folks missed Congressmember Katie Porter's section of the program. So there's a question about, can we upload the recording before ballots are due end of tomorrow night?
Yes.
Perfect.
I uploaded tonight. If anybody needs a direct link to it before I upload it, I could do that, but I'd need emails. I'll get it uploaded tonight after this meeting.
Okay. And possible, once we get that uploaded, to send out maybe an email blast to folks just so they know it's been uploaded and they have the link.
Sure.
Okay. And we can help on that.
And then Alan, if you could send me any latest updates tonight for any of the people that renewed during the meeting, if you could check for that, and I will send any new people the ballots. or I should say, members that renewed tonight. Alan, did you catch that? I don't know if he's unmuted. Okay, anybody else have questions about ballots? They should be in your inbox. Look for the word "Vote Now for Governor" from the Tri-Valley Democratic Club. Again, if you're having problems or you believe that you should have received a ballot, if you could email tvdemsmedia@gmail.com, we'll work that out in the next 24 hours and I will get that video uploaded tonight. Anything else?
Beverly has her hand up.
Bev? Go ahead and unmute.
Oh, Jackie, I was just going to ask, are you going to bring up what I had sent you the email about the boycotting?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. So this was sent from Bev, as well as this has been on many of the members' mind, is how do we effectively make or push some of these people who are making bad decisions, who are holding the purse strings? How do we effectively push them to stop their bad behavior? And what comes to mind is what is it, David Ellison, Larry Ellison's son, who is buying up all this media and controlling the media, and real nasty stuff going on, and they're supporting the Trump administration. Beverly sent a note requesting that we boycott the products that are owned now by Ellison. And
I have
that
a list
is, yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead.
My thought was, and I did write to Indivisible, I wrote to all these people because I think that the only thing we can do is talk with money, because no one understands, no one seems to care about anything else, and we can't do anything. So the current properties that they own are the Paramount Skydance, but I will put in the thing, if their merger goes through, which I'm sure it will, they will be the largest owners of any media that we've ever had in history. And I will put in the link. Bernie Sanders just came out with a list of all of the properties they own. And I was looking, I think Paramount, I can do more research on it, already owns CBS, Miramax, Nickelodeon, MTV.
I can give you an update on that. I worked for Viacom Cable for how many years? Who got pulled up by some Fred Stone, and then that got gobbled up. He bought up Paramount. He bought up Universal Studios, Paramount, MTV, Nickelodeon. All of those contents were part of the Paramount family. And then, of course, the cable companies merged together, right? So you had Time Warner merged with a cable company out of, well, who is it? Charter Communication out of St. Louis. So after all these things combined into these huge conglomerates, and now Larry Ellison, who wrecked PeopleSoft, who came in and he took over a hostile takeover of PeopleSoft. He owns Oracle, PeopleSoft. Now his son has bought up all the Viacom properties, and also the properties that were Time Warner has gotten bought up, and now they're all attempting to purchase everything and combine everything all together. And it's not good for the customer. It's not good for communications. It's not good for the news, because they can control the media. It's a nightmare. It's things that used to, they would call it a monopoly and break them up, but that's not what's happening right now in the media. So I'm with you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just, these are some of the is there a way we can send it out or something, or not? We're not allowed to do that. Like they're going to own, if this goes through parts of, I guess, CNN, TNT, I have a whole list here, Showtime, Fandango. I mean, I've been buying Discovery Channel, HBO. Maybe they own HBO already, but I've
HBO
been,
and Cinemax and all those were part of the Warner system. They're part of Time Warner, which is now looking at consolidating.
I
Yeah.
was hoping we could just, for me, it will be, me not buying any of their movies, not subscribing to any of their, apps or anything. That might be an effective way if people could do it. I hate to do it to CNN and, which provides news and everything, but Comedy Central, all of these. But that might be an action worth promoting if we could get enough of the United States to do something like that.
I actually downgraded my cable. I took off the Paramount, all the Viacom assets, all of that, and you end up with very little content at the end of the day. And it's sad, but I did it and it saved me a lot of money. I sent the message to the cable company. But there's all these streaming services. You have to also boycott their streaming side if you're going to do it effectively. I'm with you on there.
So I don't know if you can send something out, or do everyone have to vote on whether they like this idea or not, or I don't know.
We could talk about it. I would think that's an individual choice that we can share who owns
Right.
it and what they're doing and let our members make a choice if that's something they want to
Yeah.
do. What do you guys feel about that? Yes, no, yay? We're on the right track. Anyone? Nathan?
I'm curious to check out the list. Haven't really thought about it much, but sounds like a good idea to hopefully pinch them at the purse strings.
Yeah, I'm very much in support of cutting back on streaming services as much as possible, just personally as a matter of like saving money. Like, even if it comes down to, oh, I really need to like access a show, like I like to figure out which of my streaming services, like which logins I can share with friends and vice versa. But I think also, like, as a political club, as a Democratic club, we also need to keep in mind for our next members of Congress, or who we support, or who as a party we support to be our attorney general or our state legislators, like really make that demand that they pay attention to antitrust, they pay attention to monopoly regulation. Attorney General Bonta has done a really good job of at least angling the state Department of Justice to investigate mergers like this. But we really need our next member of Congress to really take this seriously. Our assembly member and state senator are really good at keeping an eye on monopolies. We should send in emails and calls letting them know that we care about the fact that they pay attention to this, because we're currently seeing what happens when a far-right government is running the show. This is what happens.
Thank you. Sorry, my Zoom dropped, guys, for a second. This is like the second time in a month it kicked me out. I agree with putting the pressure on. I can tell you as a communications employee that worked, and I loved Viacom. The industry's not the same anymore. They're just so consolidated. Yes, Beverly.
I think I have such, and maybe I'm so distraught. I feel like we're already almost, and I hate to sound like a conspiracy person, I think it's already too late. I think that all of these this is going to be approved. I wonder how much of a voice we have at this point, and all of that really frightens me. He controls so much. And I'm even concerned we won't have a free and fair election, that ICE will be at the polling places. And so I don't know what we can do. I'm so frustrated.
I agree. It's scary. I'm just hoping that we have such a big turnout and people send a resounding message to Trump in this primary. It's all we can do is get people out to vote.
I think what you guys are doing, I think it's remarkable that you got 6 gubernatorial candidates from California to come on to your Zoom link. Like, I'm in South Lake Tahoe. I have a much smaller base, but I mean, a lot of people feel the same way, that free and fair elections, but that's why the No Kings rally. That's why getting out information. That's why it's still a democracy, right? And what you guys are doing along those lines, I think is remarkable. And that's how we're going to make sure that this next election is fair. Are you going to be sending out the recording? Is there any way that we could share that with other folks?
Yes, yes, I will be uploading, and it just stopped though when I got rebooted. It bounced me out, so we won't have these last couple comments, but we will have the recording of all of the candidates, and I will upload it to our YouTube channel. And let me get that. Are you signed up for our mailing list? If you're signed up for,
I'm not yet. I mean, I just heard about you guys yesterday and heard that this was happening, and just seeing all the candidates now, I'm just more confused and need more information. I will definitely join your YouTube channel. I just dropped my email in the chat, but I can sign up for, you have a newsletter as well?
yes, we do. We do have a newsletter on our website. You put your note in the chat. Let's see.
Just my email, but I don't want to bother you. I'll sign up through your website. That's remarkable.
Yeah, just go to trivalleydems.com, I think it is. And there should be a link on that that says join our or sign up for our newsletter.
I will definitely do that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your efforts, because I know it takes a lot to coordinate and do all this. And so thank you.
Yeah, I want to really thank Richard. He did an awesome job. This was all his doing tonight. So thank you, Richard Lee, for all the work you did putting this wonderful thing together. And Michael and Bev, let's start with Michael. Michael.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I did come in a little late. I apologize. So I will have some questions. I want to get a hold of the video as well. But this had to go back to the antitrust. I think that's a really interesting area. And I have 2 questions on that. One is, obviously, is there anybody that's put together kind of a list where we can individually look at that and see what we have and what we're subscribing to? That would be first. The second is, and more importantly, how do we push this message out to other Dems? How are we going to, I mean, we can do it individually, we can do it here as a group, but I think it's more important that we blast this stuff out, or, it's kind of common sense to other groups, other Democratic groups. And maybe you've already figured that out, but I'd just like to know how you've approached that. And I'm still waiting for the email.
It was, as far as, this issue was just brought up by Bev through email, so we haven't done any background work and putting a list together. However, because I've worked in the industry, I know these cable systems pretty well, and the history of what channels belong to what systems, but now when they're going to be consolidated, I mean, you can just pretty much picture every cable channel you have being controlled by 1 or 2 companies, and that is not a good place to be. Antitrust laws, whether the Trump administration even cares about it, his FEC is outrageous. They're not following FEC rules or campaign finances. It's pretty much just, does Trump like you? You might get the deal done. Trump doesn't like you, you won't get the deal done. And never has it been done like that before. So I think that that taking our money and putting our money and using our money effectively to not put money in the hands of some of these people that are giving money to Donald Trump, or kowtowing to him. Maybe we take our money elsewhere. There's a lot of services out there. We don't have to be streaming Paramount. We don't have to be streaming Discovery or HBO or Showtime. And unfortunately, after you start going through some of these channels, you'll find a lot of them are owned by the same corporations. But we'll use what Beverly gives us. Bernie's done some work on that, and we'll try to put together a list. Like I said, I know the cable industry pretty well. I know who Showtime and HBO and Cinemax and all these different channels, who they're owned by. So we'll try to put together our own list as well and supplement it. Beth.
And then for folks who still have questions on endorsement ballot, didn't get their endorsement ballot, am I a voting member or whatever, please check your spam, your promotions, your updates, tabs and stuff first. It may be living and lurking in there. Otherwise, if you genuinely just don't see it anywhere in your inbox, again, tvdemsmedia@gmail.com is where you can reach us and we'll help you out. And then, of course, I'll just reiterate again that YouTube recording will be up soon tonight, and we can send out an email blast to our folks. And I know I put in the link tree, but I'll put it in again into the chat where you can find all of our socials, where to join to become a member, our website, our YouTube channel, things like that. I think that's it from me. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. And thank you, Richard. And it is important, if you're not a member of our club, join a Democratic club or join Indivisible. Indivisible does wonderful work. We appreciate our partners and look for our events. We're happy to share events from our sister clubs, brother clubs, our friends in Indivisible. So share your events with us. We will share them with our members. And as always, we appreciate our members so much. And unless there's, Richard.
Sorry, I promised last time and then I'll shut up. If anyone needs an incentive to pay dues and join us as a voting member, next month, our April meeting, a preview, we will be talking to candidates for Congressional District 14 who are vying to replace Eric Swalwell, who we heard from tonight. If you pay your dues today, you will be eligible to vote in that endorsement meeting. But again, bylaws say 28 days out, and that I believe is in like 2 or 3 or 4 days from now. So please feel free to pay your dues if you would like to vote in that endorsement meeting, because the cutoff is in a couple of days.
Thank you. And that should be a really good meeting. Okay. If there are no other items.
Question. What is the date of the meeting in April?
Let me grab a calendar.
It's the 3rd Monday of every month, so it should be April 20th.
Yes, it's April 20th. It's my sister's birthday.
And we will be starting at 7 o'clock, our regular time for that meeting. Thanks, Linda.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you all for joining. That was a wonderful meeting. I appreciate all of our candidates. Again, look for your ballot. Check all your folders. If you have any problems, send an email to tvdemsmedia@gmail.com and we will get you your ballot. And as always, you can always reach out to me as well. And I will put my phone number in the chat if you have any issues, can't find it, forgot the email. Here is my number. Again, we appreciate all of our club members.
How many Tri-Valley Dem paid members?
I think Ellen said earlier, we're almost like at 100.
Good.
Yeah, this is it's a really good start.
We're over 100. We're about 107 now.
Yeah. And how many does anyone know in San Ramon Valley Dems? Okay, just curious. And so you can be member of both, and I'm member of both now, and I find because a lot of things go between the two.
Yes, you can be a member, and that's a good thing because we're members, we're chartered through Alameda County and they're chartered through Contra Costa County. So there's issues that come up that we may not be aware of. So, you know, join as many clubs as you can. It's all good for the clubs. Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn our meeting. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you all.